Page 119, Little Brown Jug. On page 118, they're introducing you to the F major scale. The key of F major has one flat, a B flat, which simply means you're playing all white notes except for the B. Instead of a B, you play B flats. All B's are flatted, automatic. It's just part of the game. I would encourage you to go do my video on the F major scale. Do the beginner portion of it. The fingering for the scale is provided in the book at the bottom of the page, each hand. It's important that you learn to play that scale. It will make playing in F major a lot easier if you can play the scale. And the primary chords. So they'll get to the primary chords a little later, all right? Just one thing at a time. Now on page 119, at the top of the page, they're introducing you to two new symbols, more symbols to memorize. The first symbol is the eighth rest. It's like an eighth note, except you're quiet for half a quarter note. It is that little line, has a stem, with a little flag that goes off to the left. And that's important, because years ago, publishers used a symbol that looks like this, except the flag went off to the right, and that is a quarter rest. It's confusing, so you had to be careful which way that flag was going, whether it's an eighth rest or a quarter rest or what. That's pretty much died away. Most publishers now use the symbol for a quarter rest like shown in the first line there in the last measure there in the left hand. You see that little squiggly thing? That's a quarter rest symbol. That's used today pretty much. But nonetheless, if you're going to draw an eighth rest, make sure the flag goes off to the left, or it could be considered incorrect. You confuse people. Now, the other symbol they're introducing is the accent sign, the little sideways arrow. Now don't confuse this with the long sideways arrow, like in the first line you get that long thing. That's a crescendo thing. This is a little short arrow that's above or below individual notes. And you'll see the first ones there at the end of the first line. They're a half note at the end. It's above the top staff notes. That's below the lower staff notes. It means give that a little extra oomph, just a little more, you know. Just, we say accent it, means give it, they say emphasis, I say oomph, whatever. It just means you're going to play it with little, just give it, Now it's a little misleading with piano, because once we push a note down, that's it, the piano takes over, we can't control it really too much unless we lift up and stop the sound. But really what the accent is supposed to do, and a wind player or a string player or these other instruments that can control their sound after they started, they can play it accurately. And that is, an accent actually applies to the attack or the initial sound on the note. That part is louder, and then you're supposed to come down and play the rest of the note normal. So we play ba, right? You don't play the whole note louder, it's just the beginning of it. Well, with piano, that doesn't work that way. We can't do that. So we just play it louder, and that's as close as we can get. In Little Brown Jug, there's not a lot to say here. It's an F major, so all the B's are going to be B flat. Your hands will move around a little bit, at least the right hand does. You get look at the last measure of the first line in the right hand. You're using 1/5 for all of those notes, so you're going up. This is used a lot in piano. You'll have to look down to see what you're doing. Eventually, you want to be able to play stuff like this without looking at the keyboard. You want to feel your way around. And it is, on these staccatos, it's wrist staccato throughout, okay? So the last two measures on the right hand of the first line there, it's just bump, bump, just a little bump up, bouncing. Now, the left hand could do a finger staccato, but it's easier and a lot more fun, in my opinion, if you just do both hands the same. So bounce both hands. So if you're going to bounce this hand, go ahead and do this. To the last note. So I recommend just a light wrist staccato, both hands throughout any of the staccatos in here. There is a pickup beat, a half a beat actually. It's an eighth note. So when I count us in, I'm going to give us 3.5 counts. Counting us in is a little bit trickier. It's going to be like a 1, 2, 3, 4, and you come in on the and of 4. So it's 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and you come in immediately after I say 4. Right? Oh, won't that be fun? Huh? There's a repeat sign at the bottom, so we're going to play this twice. The melody is the top note in the right hand. Bring out the melody, and that's a challenge for you. In the right hand, when you have those two notes at the same time, like the last two measures of the first line in the right hand, you have the B flat E. Try and bring out the E. Put a little more weight on the E. Just stress that a little more. If you have to hear the melody by itself, then leave out the bottom note. See that? Just try and bring out the top note as best you can. A little bit about the dynamics, because it's kind of important in this piece. Well, it's important in all pieces, but look at the first line, for instance. You have that long crescendo throughout the whole line. Doesn't tell you how loud to get. It's up to you. You're not going to get really, really loud. And there's not a lot of difference between a mezzo forte and a forte. So you have to plan this out. If you start crescendoing immediately, you're going to be loud by the time you finish the first full measure. And then you don't have anywhere to go for the rest of the line. So I suggest you kind of think, okay, the first full measure I'm just going to stay medium loud, and then the next measure I'm just going to up it just a little bit, and the next to the last measure I'm going to up it just a little more, and then in the last measure I'm going to let it have it. Save most of your crescendo for the end. That's where it's most effective. Don't crescendo up front too much. So in the first line, I'm going to start about here. I want to end here. So between here and here, I got to gradually get a little louder. Now a little louder. Now a little louder. Now louder. Bring it back down. And frankly, I think you could start at a medium soft at the beginning of this, because that gives you more room to grow. All right? It's up to you how you do it. We adjust the dynamics. The dynamics provided our suggestions. All right, they're an editor's suggestion. A lot of times in classical music, the composer will put the dynamics they want. Now, Beethoven did. He followed his dynamics to the letter. This is a folk song. This is an arrangement. The dynamics are suggestions, so bring it down a little bit. In the third line, the first two measures are loud. Now in the third measure, they're suggesting medium loud and then go back up to probably loud. I suggest bring it all the way down to at least a medium soft. Maybe even just a soft for the first beat and then immediately start coming up. It's up to you. Experiment and see what you think, but I'd start. Just make sure you don't get too loud too soon. You want to save that to the end. Last line's the same as the third. So you experiment with the dynamics and see what you think. Let's try this together and see what happens. So your right hand is here. It's going to move around a little, so be ready. Left hand's here. Okay. 1, 2, and 3, and 4.